started all this, I was 30 years old. And so I had so many people tell me, you want to go to law school, you're going to have 4 years of undergraduate, you're going to have 3 years of law school. So that's 7 years. And, you're going to be 37 years old when you get out of law school.
What's your response to that?
Well, my response was, in 7 years, I'm going to be 37 years old, whether I'm still in the same place that I am today or whether I am a lawyer with a law degree. I didn't want 30 to be a number that kept me from reaching another goal that I felt would help my family.
Hi everyone, this is Rod Kate and welcome to episode 7 of Rocket Motivation. My guest today found herself pregnant in her senior year of high school. She got married, had another child, and was divorced by age 23 and living in a single-wide trailer with her 2 children. This was just the beginning of the journey, or as we say on Rocket Motivation, this was the blast-off of today's guests. Regina Cash, welcome to Rocket Motivation.
Very nice to be here.
Regina, why don't you go ahead and let's talk about where you are today. Tell us where you are in your life today, your career, your family, kind of just fill us in.
I'm an attorney with a law firm of Luther, Collier, Hodges, and Cash. We have 3 offices in 3 separate states, Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi. I'm licensed to practice law in all 3 states. I am currently married. I have 2 beautiful children. I have 4 precious grandchildren, and I'm just living my life as fully as I can make it.
Well, Regina, let's go back to the start of the journey. Let's go back to 1989. All right, so I think at this time you're newly divorced with 2 kids, single mom living in a trailer. So I got kind of a 2-part question. So at this time, what is your economic status?
Back at age 17, discovering a senior year of high school, discovering that I was going to have a child, very, very, very tough. Having to tell my parents, very conservative Christian people, was really tough. Having to tell my boyfriend was very tough. And then trying to figure out, where do I go from here? That's a question I think I've asked many, many times in my life. Where do I go from here? And my dad was, very conservative. And, when we told them 2 weeks later, I was walking down the aisle and with a smile on my face and scared to death and was married. My ex-husband and I always, talked about it. We didn't really grow up. We were just yanked up and threw into something that we just did not have a clue about. About 8 months later, I had an 8-pound, 12-ounce baby boy.
Right. And then I know you had another child. And then, to kind of fast forward, I know the marriage doesn't work out, which is, I would say understandable given the circumstances. And so I know you get a divorce and, you're living, now you're a single mom. How are you making ends meet at this point?
When my husband and I divorced, then I find myself making $4 an hour, by the way, working part-time at a home care company with 2 children. And basically what I tried to do was just kind of set small goals for myself and try to make it work. My employer worked with me. He helped me with a raise. He actually helped me get health insurance for myself. And he actually helped me during the week. What I would do was I would build insurance. But on the weekends, when I did not have my children, I was working. I was doing something. And he allowed me to go out, check baby monitors, paid me per monitor. And my area was from Gadsden, Alabama to the Tennessee line. And I went in and out of every little small area all the way through, checking baby monitors, checking oxygen, and checking medical equipment. My first goal right after my divorce was just simply keeping my mobile home, keeping my children together, keeping them as stable, as much in a stable environment as I could. After that year, and I was able to keep my mobile home, keep the payment, I began working toward a new goal. And my new goal was to get them a better place to live. The mobile home was a decent place, but I had 2 children, and one was a boy and one was a girl, and we had a 2-bedroom mobile home. And so I began to work toward saving and kind of getting out, doing some research as to how I could help, maybe get a better. And within 2 years of my divorce, I had built my own little house, 1,080 square feet, but I had 3 bedrooms and 2 little bathrooms, and that's where I took care of my children.
You actually make enough. You build your own small home. Okay, what's your next goal?
Then my next goal was my ex-husband and I divorced. I was driving a vehicle that cost a total of about $600, and I was trying to have a decent car, and then within 3 years of my divorce.
Regina, let me ask you this. What is your motivation here at this point to do all this stuff? What's your motivation to get going?
The motivation that I had for my children. I was devastated when I found myself divorced, single, living in a mobile home, and I just felt like I had ruined their lives. I felt like that I was responsible for these 2 lives, and I had failed my children. And my motivation was to stand on my own 2 feet, figure it out, and make a life that would help them have a better, brighter future. If they were not in my presence, then I was doing something to help them, to help me get ahead. That's where I started, and that was my motivation to move forward. Till I was about 29 years old. And again, at 23, I found myself questioning what I could do additionally. So I asked myself again, where do I go from here?
What was your answer when you asked yourself, where do I go from here?
I started a home care company, billing company, and I worked real hard at it, but I realized about a year or so in, it was not working for me. I couldn't make the money, and I just was not. At that time, I had gotten married. I had met my husband. The way I met my husband, Randy, while I was working with a home care company, was working, seeing patients on the weekend. And I was going in and out of some pretty bad areas because I was going in and out of every bad area from Gadsden all the way to the Tennessee line. And the owner felt, this might not be the best thing for a young female. And so he paired me up with a respiratory therapist, was moonlighting from the local hospital. We started on the weekend, and we would see folks all the way through till the weekend was over, and it was time for me to pick my children up. Those long rides, we got to know each other, and we ended up getting married. After we got married, I made the decision that I would like to go back to school. What kind of school, I didn't know. I didn't know how, what I wanted to do. I just felt like it was the best thing for me to get an education.
Why did you make that decision? Because now, you're married, you have your kids, but you decide to go back to college. Why did you do that?
Well, Randy had some medical issues. He ended up having an emergency quadruple bypass. I realized that, if something happened to Randy, that my children and I would be back to minimum wage job in a situation where I was going to be struggling. And so I wanted to protect them, and I wanted to make sure that my future and their future was strong. And so while Randy was still very healthy, I decided I would go back and try to get a degree in something. When I started out, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but the summer before I actually really got into undergraduate, I found out that the small little house that I had built in a very, very good school district was, in fact, in a really bad school district. And so I was probably 200 yards from the county line. So me and several other parents who found themselves in this situation, we decided to do something about it. And to make a long story short, I was chosen as the spokesperson, and we went before the county commissioners. We went to see the mayor of the city. We went, and I was on the news. We were able to annex into the better district, and my children were able to go to a good school. As a result of that, my husband said, Regina, have you ever thought about law school? Now, had anybody else in this world said to me, law school, I would not have even thought about it. But Randy had this way, and I wanted him to be proud of me. And if he said I could do it, well, it was certainly worth a try. And so I went through undergraduate at Jacksonville State University. I got there and I started, I took my LSAT test and studied for it and was able to get into the University of Alabama School of Law. Because of my age, when I started all this, I was 30 years old. And so I had so many people tell me, you want to go to law school, you're going to have 4 years of undergraduate, you're going to have 3 years of law school. So that's 7 years. And, you're going to be 37 years old when you get out of law school.
I mean, what's your response to that?
Well, my response was, in 7 years, I'm going to be 37 years old, whether I'm still in the same place that I am today or whether I am a lawyer with a law degree. And so it didn't bother me that I was starting at 30. I didn't want 30 to be a number that kept me from reaching another goal that I felt would help my family.
And let's go back too, because we skipped over Jacksonville State. You did quite well at Jacksonville State, didn't you?
I did. I graduated from Jacksonville State in 3 years instead of 4. Again, my motivation was to get through as quickly as possible because I was older, and because I went year round. I made that was the thing that I was most focused on, and I graduated summa cum laude in 3 years.
All right, and so now you're out of Jacksonville State. You're going to go to law school. You start applying to law schools, right?
I did, and actually, all the way through Jacksonville State, and I think it's real important to note that I did things. It is really difficult for anyone to go through college, and especially when you've got a family and responsibilities. My husband helped me. I did things that I could, anything that I could do to motivate myself and make me see myself as an attorney. We would go and we would look at office furniture. We would go and I would try on a black suit, what I thought was the pinnacle of a lawyer. I would look at briefcases and just anything that I could do. If I was really struggling, I would look at those things to see myself as a lawyer. Also, another thing I would do in undergraduate, and because it's so difficult, is I would never talk about how far I had to go. If I was 2 years in, or if I was a year in or 6 months in, I would always keep looking back on how far I had come. I would never, ever focus on how much further I had to go. I would look at the classes that I had already accomplished and taken and finished and completed. I would never, ever look at all of the classes I had to still take. And I think those things really helped me to stay motivated and stay in the game.
Well, Regina, I think that's really interesting. So what you would do is, and if you needed some motivation, so you're going to visualize yourself as a lawyer. So you go into the stores, you look at briefcases, you look at office furniture, you try on suits to visualize yourself, what you're going to be in the future. And how did that motivate you?
It motivated me because you have to understand, I was the first lawyer I had ever known. No one in my family was lawyers. The only other lawyer I guess I knew was my divorce lawyer. And that wasn't, a really good place to go back and think about those things. But anything that I could do to continue to motivate me, to keep me taking those next steps. And I didn't look at the semesters. I didn't focus on what was ahead of me. I focused literally on that next test. It's like you're going up a hill and you're taking a step. Some of the steps are smooth. Some of the steps have rocks or gravel. Some of the steps have boulders. And you've got to do something in your life to keep yourself moving forward. Even if it's small steps to move forward, you've got to keep yourself moving forward to get over those big boulders. And if you do it one step at a time, the first thing you know, you look around and you've made it. And that is what everyone's goal should be, to make it.
And we hadn't really spoken much about your father yet, but what did your father think about it when you told him, hey, Dad, I'm thinking about going to law school?
Well, let me premise that question on this. My father and I I've always been very close. I look just like him. I've always felt a closeness to my father and my mother. But my father he's now 82 years old, and he was raised old school. The husband takes care of the family, the husband works. The wife is a homemaker and a mother. So when I contacted him and told him that I was going to look at law school, he didn't want that. I mean, he was just, well, why don't you become a teacher? How about maybe a nurse? And I said, no doubt, I'd really like to try this. I really think that this is something I'd really like to do. And all the way through undergraduate at Jacksonville State, he kind of, he really didn't take a lot of interest. Again, he didn't see me as a lawyer. I'm 4'11". I've got a strong Southern drawl, and I'm a female.
No, come on, Regina. You don't have a strong Southern drawl.
And so, he just couldn't see me as a lawyer. He loves me, and he didn't want me to be disappointed. And if I was going to go to college, he wanted me to do something that he thought I could do. And that's fine. I mean, loved ones really, truly mean well. But sometimes you just have to do what you think is best for you. So once I got into law school, I got all the way through my first year, my dad would say, don't you wish you hadn't started this? Again, he was terrified that I had done all of these things and I'd worked so hard and I wasn't going to be able to make it through the University of Alabama as a lawyer. And so when I finished my first semester of my second year, I was exactly halfway through law school. I called him up and I said, Dad, I want to let you know I'm halfway through law school today. I just finished my first semester of my second year. I am right now halfway through. So apparently, he started thinking about that. And he thought, wow, I mean, if she's halfway through and she hasn't flunked out yet or they haven't kicked her out yet, I guess she's going to make it. And so then every time I talked to him, he would say, well, when are you going to get out and buy me a truck? And I guess because he considered being a lawyer as, like a lot of people, they have this myth that, we just start buying our golf clubs and just watch the money roll in.
Hey, and Regina, let me ask you this. All right, so how old are you when you graduate from law school?
I was 36 when I graduated from law school. That was another beginning for me because at that time I was living in Tuscaloosa. We moved to Tuscaloosa at that time. And I was started wondering again, where do I go from here? I'm 36 years old, a female, and I have this wonderful Southern drawl. I mean, am I going to be able to make it as a lawyer? So I started really working and focusing on that. We had always talked about, my husband and I always talked about possibly one day retiring on the Gulf. And, he always loved the beach and he always loved the Gulf. But I thought, I'm 36, getting pretty close to the big 4-0. And if I'm ever going to be going to the Gulf, this will be the time. And so I started putting in resumes, didn't know law firms, had no connections to lawyers. And I just started finding all the firms that were in the Mobile and the Gulf Shores area. And I started putting resumes in. And I got an interview with a plaintiff's firm in Mobile, Daniel Upton and Perry, and went down for the interview. We started talking. I guess it was probably the best interview I've ever had where I did not get the job. We spent about an hour just talking and we just cutting up, laughing. It was just the best laid-back interview I'd ever had. But in the end, he says, well, Regina, I think that I'm really looking for someone who is from this area, who knows people from this area, who can bring in business. But he said, I think I know a firm upstairs. We were in an office complex. He said, I think I know someone upstairs that I think you'd be a great fit. And so he called Jeff Luther, and Jeff just happened to pick up the phone. And he told him, he said, hey, Jeff, got someone here I think you need to meet. And so Jeff said, well, send her up. And so I went up, I met with Jeff Luther, a couple of other partners that he had, but there was one partner there that had to make a decision that wasn't there at the time. They told us, well, we'll have to set up a new interview for you to meet with him. Well, after the interviewing, I went back to Tuscaloosa, and I realized that the firm, Luther, Oldenburg, and Rainey was the name of the firm. I realized that they were coming on campus at the University of Alabama, and they were going to be interviewing students on campus in a couple of months.
Why was that important for you to understand that that was happening?
Because I knew they only had a couple of openings, and I knew if I had not locked in my job before they came on campus, there was a chance that there were other students that they could choose that were better. I wasn't, number one in my class. There were folks that, had better GPAs or whatever. So I decided I want to get back down there before and get my job locked in before they come on campus.
And were you able to do it?
I did. I went back down, met with the last partner, locked in my job before they ever came on campus.
Right. And so now, Regina, how long have you been practicing law in Mobile?
I've been practicing law for 18 years now in Mobile.
That's quite a journey, coming from single mom with 2 kids, a $4 an hour job. And now, not only have you been practicing law for 18 years, you are a named partner in your law firm, are you not?
I am a named partner, and Jeff Luther, who gave me my first shot as a lawyer, is the Luther in Luther, Collier, Hodges, and Cash. Not only, did I get that job, I left Luther, Oldenburg, and Rainey at one point and thought that a larger firm would be what was best for me. But at one point, I did not feel that it was the best thing. And Jeff and Danny, Luke had actually come over with the new firm or the other firm. He came over, and Jeff and Danny approached Luke and I, and we started the firm of Luther, Collier, Hodges, and Cash.
And Regina, one thing I say in my book is, you have one life, you got to make it great. And the main thing is you just don't quit. You had plenty of opportunities to quit, and you never did. Why not?
It was not an option for me to quit. It's not an option for me to quit today. I'll be 56 years old in January. And I don't see myself in that process of, okay, I've done this or that. No, I want to see what tomorrow is going to bring, and I want to see what I can do to help the family and help myself to be as much as I can. My son, he got married younger, but he took a little page out of my life, and I want to think that my life helped him to make the decision to go back to school and become an engineer. And now he's a design engineer for Continental Motors and has a beautiful wife and 2 small children. And I'm very, very proud of him. My daughter, she's got a good job. She's got a nice home with she and her husband, and has the sweetest little girl that she's just my heart. So I feel like that they saw their mom never quit, and I don't think that they will ever quit. If you want to know my biggest accomplishment, that's my biggest accomplishment, is to be that role model for them and let them see no matter where you are. And it's important for anyone to know, it doesn't matter where you are. And I've always told my children, it's okay to fail. It's okay to try something and fail. But the most important thing is that you try. I never want to know that you had a goal or had a dream, but you just never tried to do it. When you do that, you just failed yourself. And that would be a tragedy. Failing is not a tragedy.
You go from, the single mom in a trailer with 2 kids, a $4 an hour job, to now you're a named partner in your law firm. I know we've talked about the journey along the way, but when you think about it right now is, how did you do it?
One day at a time, one foot at a time, and not giving myself excuses. There's put something on my little poster that sat beside my desk for the longest time, and it's, the world gives you a lot of wonderful opportunities, brilliantly disguised as impossible situations. That's the way I look at it. It doesn't matter how hard it is. If you try it and work on it piece by piece, day by day. No, I can't go from a mobile home to a partner in a law firm overnight, but nothing is done overnight. You have to build yourself. You have to build each little step. And I'll tell you, every little step that I ever built, from my little single mobile home to the home I live in now with my husband and with my children and my grandchildren close by, with all of that. Wherever I've been happy. I've made sure that I was happy, and I made sure that I kept pushing myself for whatever I wanted to do.
Regina, to do what you've done, I mean, you have to have some toughness, some tenacity, that never quit attitude. Where did it come from?
I don't know, other than just the motivation that I had for my children. Again, my dad and my mom raised us. They had it tough. They had a very tough life. And I wanted to see my children not just survive in this world. I wanted to see them thrive in this world. And I wanted to give them every opportunity to do that. If someone had said back, 1989, when my divorce was final, oh, don't worry about it, Regina. One day you'll be a lawyer, partner in a law firm, and, you'll be practicing law in 3 states. Well, I would have thought, right. No one actually knows what's going to happen to your life, but you just have to set those goals for yourself daily, weekly, yearly, and work toward them.
Hey, Regina, what advice would you give to the listeners, all right, who, maybe because of their circumstances, they have more hurdles to jump over, in reaching their goals? I mean, what advice would you give them?
Take it one day at a time. Find something every day. Find goals every day that you can set. My goal never, when I was living in my mobile home, was to be a lawyer. That was not my goal. My goals were smaller. I just want to keep my mobile home, or I'd like to have a better car in this coming up year. It was smaller goals, and to reach those goals is an accomplishment, and you will be shocked at how important those small goals are to give you the strength and the motivation to set bigger, better, more distant goals for yourself. That would be my advice, if I had any, would be that they look at their life, find out what they would like, where they would like to see themselves in a year. And that was usually my goal every year in January. People always talk about, New Year resolution. Well, I always said it, but it wasn't something way out there. It was something just really that sounded so small to some people, but it wasn't small to me. Making sure I could pay my $182 mobile home payment was a huge goal for me at that time. Those type things really gave me goals that they were important to me at that time, and reaching them made me proud of myself. And I think that gave me the strength and the motivation to persevere to the point of making that decision of law school.
Also, Regina, I would think this too. When you're sitting there, struggling, thinking, all right, my goal here is just to make my mobile home payment. My goal here is just to make sure I have some food on the table. So when you have a background like that, and so when you're in law school, let's say, studying for your final exams, it seems to me that it might be when you look back on stuff that you had to go through, that probably prepared you for law school and the pressures that law school brings.
Absolutely. It was the fact, those small goals that you set for yourself and you achieve. You're not going to achieve them all, but you will achieve the small goals that you set. It'll give you the strength to set those bigger goals and say, you know what, I think I might could get there. I had a family and I had children and I had people around me. But again, I think even if I didn't have the husband, or if I didn't have the children, whatever your goal is, and whoever you have, sometimes you might not even have a soul to depend on, but yourself. If you work hard enough, yourself is enough. Yourself will get you through. And you just have to believe. You have to believe in yourself enough to keep pushing, because you're the one. I was the one that was up late at night studying for the bar, or studying for the psychology exam, or studying for whatever in order to get where I was. I told my son when he was going through engineering school, I said, you have to want whatever goal you're set for yourself, you have to want it more than you want what's going on today. You got to want it more than you want to go out with your friends tonight. You've got to stay focused on what is the most important thing to get me to where I want to go tomorrow. If you can do that, then day by day, you will turn around and you'll wake up. You'll have your goals reached.
Well, Regina, you've given so many pearls of wisdom, but if somebody wants to get in touch with you, if they want to hire you as a lawyer, how can they do it?
My firm is Luther, Collier, Hodges, and Cash. We are in downtown Mobile. The main office is in downtown Mobile, and that's where my office is, 401 Church Street, Mobile, Alabama.
Okay. And what's your phone number or email address, or how can somebody get in touch with you personally?
Yeah. 251-694-9393 is our main office.
Well, Regina, I tell you, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on today. Your story of, the way you started and then the way you've ended up. And I know the journey's not over yet. It just keeps going. But I want to thank you so much for coming on Rocket Motivation. Your story is inspirational and motivational. I think the listeners are going to get a lot out of it. So thanks a lot, Regina.
Thank you.
Regina Cash's story is what Rocket Motivation is all about. Regina didn't let her tough circumstances stop her from improving her life and the lives of her children. Episode 7 of Rocket Motivation is in the books. Next week's guest is Monya Podratz. Monya grew up in Germany and moved to Mobile, Alabama when she got married. She had 2 children and then went through a devastating divorce that completely upended her life. She used this experience as a catalyst to start a career helping people overcome adversity in their own lives. Should be a great show. See you next week. Thanks for listening to the show. If you're interested in getting my book, Get Back Up, just go to Amazon and put in Get Back Up and my name, Rod Caden. It'll pop right up. I would love it if you would subscribe to the podcast and rate and review the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. I would really appreciate it if you'd share it with a friend. I would like as many people to hear my message as possible. And we'll see you next week. Never give up and always get back up.